Hey, what's going on? I do have a story I would like to share with people. Your reaction is the transaction for the narcissist. You know, last year, around this time, well, maybe I would say probably in July last year, I had lost my place. And so I kind of was in a little bit of a kind of a vulnerable position. Had to go ahead and kind of move around a bit. Had to stay with some people. But there was one particular person I had to stay with. I truly do regret that ever happened, but it did happen ultimately. But it gave me some good insight about how things can go and how things can possibly be while living with a narcissist, okay? So let me give you the story. First, I had this person had contacted me because they had heard that I needed a place to stay, and we just so happened to work at the same place at Walmart. So we were co-workers kind of, but he was on a different shift than I was. So I really didn't know him per se, but somebody had told him that I needed a place to stay. So he had reached out to me. So he went ahead and I got moved on in. He helped me to get my things, and he was cool with that. He was cool. It was nice. But one thing that kind of really stuck out to me about this said person is whenever he started to go ahead and brag about this fling of his, this girlfriend of his, well, not necessarily a girlfriend, but a person that he had took interest in. And apparently, I guess these two had known each other for a long time. And he said that she had did something that made him cut her off, to basically, teach her a lesson per se. And he was just taking in so much happiness and joy from explaining about how she was begging him to allow her to be back in part of his life. He was taking such joy in it, laughing about how she was crying on the phone, asking, can she come back? The endless text messages of asking him, she please get another chance with him? Just all of these different things. And this dude, he didn't even have a car. I mean, honestly, he was a bum, to be honest with you, to be really real with you. But anyways, he felt that he was so much more above her. And that's because of that narcissistic type of personality. These people can have nothing, but they believe they are so much better than their victims. And then he was even saying that he had blocked her. And then she went ahead and resorted to actually sending him a freaking letter, a full-fledged letter in the mail. And he was so giddy about it, he went ahead and ran to his room and then grabbed the letter and stuff and just was so quick to show it to me in the kitchen area. And he put it on the table and says, look at this, get a load of this. And I'm reading through the letter, and I can tell that this woman had put in a lot of effort into it, into the lettering. Perfect punctuation too. But I can tell that she was really writing it from a place of desperation. And one of the key things that stuck out to me in that letter is whenever she had wrote that she was having a hard time sleeping, she couldn't eat. She said that she was missing him so much. That stuck out to me because some previous years prior to this, I remember I myself went through a situation with a narcissist. And I remember the silent treatments. I remember the constant threatening to take breaks, things of that nature, and being put on punishment. Little terms of punishment, like whether it be a few days or maybe a week or two. I remember those exact type of things, and I remember how it made me feel. It made me feel so worthless. It made me feel so lonely a lot of times. Because the addiction was real. The addiction that I got to her was just really almost unbeatable. I'm not going to lie to you. It was tough. In this time frame, I was looking pretty good. I had lost a lot of weight and everything, but apparently I ain't doing that too much more right now. I feel comfortable, but I'm working on things, guys. But seriously though, in that time frame, I understand the idea of being in such a desperate position to try to chase after somebody and trying to prove yourself to be worthy enough for certain people that don't care about you, but they only care about you in a way that is about being basically a prop in their life, being basically a yes man or a yes woman in some ways too, to just simply be there on their time schedule and nothing more. So that whole portion in that letter really stuck out to me. And then she said, also in the letter, that she's praying for him to come back. She's been praying to God for several weeks that he will give her another chance. And I said, that kind of reminds me of whenever the relationship had ended with me and my ex at that time, and how I would pray constantly for this person to return, to come back. But honestly, I'm so happy that that prayer never got answered. I'm so happy that God got me to believe and see something else that's worth more. And I'm not even talking about another woman, but I'm just talking about simply another way of understanding how things can go, and understanding that you don't need to be hooked up with somebody who treats you awful just because you don't want to be alone. You know what I mean? So yeah, that stuck out to me too as well. So he was simply just gushing about this letter. He said, "This is like the ultimate thing ever, dude." He says, "Isn't that crazy, man? Isn't that pathetic?" And he's expecting me to sit up and laugh with him about it. I didn't really have anything to say. I just said, "Oh, that's something else." He says, "But don't you think that's crazy though?" I said, "Not really." I said, I don't think she's really crazy. He said, "She's batshit crazy, dude." Like, yeah, if you think so. I said, "Well, I'm gonna go and take me a nap. I'm kind of tired." It was really late that night when I had moved in anyway. So I went into my bedroom. I shut the door, laid on my bed for quite a while, for a couple of hours before I even fell asleep. And I started to ruminate about my past situation, because of the certain key words and the things of how he explained how he was basically treating her, basically kind of activated some memories, some rumination a little bit. I felt sorry for the woman. I said, I wonder if this woman is like a caretaker or someone who works in the health, industry or some kind, or has a health, career in health or something like that, taking care of people in some way, shape, or form. I said, she must be putting up with a lot. And I just went on to bed. A couple days later, I remember him knocking on my bedroom door. I opened it up. I said, "What's up, man?" He says, "Hey, you know that crazy girl?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, I decided to go ahead and give her another chance. I'm kind of bored anyways, and I can use some entertainment. So I told her she can come on over." I reached out and unblocked her and told her she could come on over. And she was so excited. Oh my gosh. She definitely doesn't have a life. That's what this guy says. I said, "Oh, okay then." I said, "Well, it's going to be nice to meet her." I said, "When's she supposed to be coming over?" He says, "Well, she'll be over on the weekend. She'll be over on Saturday." All right then. Can't wait to meet her. Saturday rolls around. I had already pretty much had an assumption about how she would probably be. I had an assumption that she would probably be, a woman probably in her late 40s. A woman who is probably empathic, sweet, kind, understanding, probably has a belief in God, most likely. And guess what? When she came in the front door, she was precisely that. She takes care of elderly people, goes to their homes and takes care of them, stuff, feeds them and all that type of stuff, just like I thought. A person who really was God-centric, always mentioning God all the time. And I knew it. And stuff. And she was about like what? I think she was like what? 46, 47? Just like I imagined. Yeah, she was pretty nice. I really did enjoy her personality. She was really sweet. But when I would go in my room and walk away from the situation and stuff and pay attention to my own things, one thing that I definitely remember from my previous relationship was the threatening to leave, the threatening to break up whenever there is a question about something. And that's precisely what he was doing in the living room with her. If she had a question about something, or if she felt like something wasn't right and she wanted to try to talk to him about it, he would always go ahead and threaten that, say, well, I guess we don't really need to do this anymore. Or maybe I don't really need a relationship right now. Just all of these BS tactics that narcissists universally will use no matter what. It doesn't matter who it may be. They all use the same exact tired tactics, whether it be a man or a woman. It doesn't matter the age either. They will use the same tactics to make people afraid that they're going to leave them or force them away. And what would she do? She would buckle and apologize, of course, and say, I'm sorry, I won't bring it up anymore. And he felt pretty good about himself about that. Anytime he could shut the conversation down instantaneously, to shut away any type of understanding, to shut away any type of true, equal companionship, he would shut it down with, well, I guess we don't need to do this anymore. That's the kind of weak bastard he was. And I instantly got flashbacks to my ex doing the same exact thing, saying that to me too, whenever I would have a question about something, whenever I would question how things were going, how it felt like, I was invited to do this, but not invited to do that. It was the same old thing. It never changed. It was the same type of tactic. So after a few weeks of hearing the same exact type of stuff, I just said, man, this really sucks for this woman. I wish there was a way I could just tell her about it, or maybe try to open her eyes a little bit. I wondered if she know anything about narcissism. I wondered if she understand the idea about silent treatments, word salad, or anything for that matter when it comes to this type of situation. Does she know, or is she just simply clueless, like I was back in the day? So I noticed that she had started to send me a friend request, and I did accept it. And I noticed that she would go ahead and sometimes watch my videos too, like what I'm doing right now. So I said, maybe I can just simply start to try to open her eyes a little bit. Maybe I should get really more heavily involved in the topics of narcissism. And what I would do, because I also this time, the guy who I was living with, which is her boyfriend at the time, he would watch my stuff, but you think that the only thing is he would only watch stuff whenever I would mention Black Ops or Ops watching you or something like that. He will watch these type of things so he could scrutinize it and really scrutinize the titles and everything, because he said, dude, when you say Black Ops, people are going to think you're talking about Call of Duty. No. Or even the word ops. He just say, oh, people are going to think you're talking about Call of Duty. No, dumbass. Ops is it's shortened for opposition. Come on now. Come on, stop it, please. People who are hip will understand what the hell I'm saying. But anyways, all I would have to do is simply put the word God in the title, and he will not watch it, because guess what? He was an atheist, and he had a really deep-seated confrontation with God. The idea of God, everything about God was in his mind was ridiculous. So that's how I can easily make the messages without him wondering about it and stuff, because he would not watch anything that had the word God inside of the title. So I started giving different examples and just kind of obscurely telling her pretty much what I'm thinking and what she should be looking out for, telling her basically about her own situation without using names. And I remember something. I think a couple of days after I started doing these things, I remember him saying, hey, so-and-so says, I told her she could come and live with us. I said, oh, really? Okay. It's kind of a tight place already, but, it's not my place. I'm just only here for a little bit. I'm just squatting, basically. So I didn't have a problem with that. But what I shudder to think is that she's already doing so much and already driving all of her way to come always pick him up and basically be his chauffeur, buying things for him, taking care of him essentially, being his mother essentially, basically being his perfect little doormat in so many different ways. And I felt sorry for her about that. I'm like, man, I said, I really gotta ration up those videos a bit. So I was doing that over and over and stuff for the next couple of weeks after that. And then I remember what did I do? I remember I was hearing Mike and her talking, and I decided to go ahead and just go over to the park area. I decided to go to the park, and because I just didn't want to hear his voice anymore. I got sick of him that day. I went to the park and sat by myself for a little bit. And I think 20 minutes later, I remember her driving up to the park. She got out of the car and stuff, and she just was it looked like she was kind of fidgeting, walking around. Looked like she was really pondering things. So I got up and walked over towards her. I said, hey, how's it going? I said, you decided to come over to the park too, huh? And she said, yeah. Mm-hmm. I said, what's wrong? Said, I just feel like he's using me. I feel like he's doing this to me, and I've been trying really hard to try to make the relationship work, and I just feel like he doesn't want it, and he always gets so angry with me whenever I have a question about anything. I'm sitting here just taking all this in, listening to her attentively, because I can tell that she wasn't really listened to. I can tell she had been hit and hurt and stuff in other past relationships, so I can tell that she had, some history with abuse. So just simply a man being able to just listen to her without cutting her off, without trying to tell her what he thinks she's thinking, but just simply allowing her to just express herself. That's what she wanted. And I'm just listening. And then she decides to ask me, Chris, can I ask you a question? Yes. I said, sure, you can ask me anything. Those videos you've been making, were you talking about me? I said, what do you think? I think they were about me. I said, then there you go. I said, that's where it was at. Yeah, those videos were for you. She said, do you really think that's what's going on? I said, just think about it. I started to lay all out for her, basically, of how she was being talked to, how the conversation would constantly switch over to the I'm leaving you, or maybe we should just be done with this whenever she would have a question about anything. The same playbook a typical narcissist will always use in these said situations when they feel they are losing control of a target, when they feel they are losing control of your heart and your mind. I laid it all out for her. And she says, well, he says that he really wants me to move in. I don't know if I want to do it. I'm sick of being taken advantage of. I said, well, you know what? I said, go ahead, follow your mind, follow your heart. Think about it. I said, you make good money. I said, you don't really need to live with Mike. Oops, I used his name. Oops. Anyways, I said, you don't really need to live with him, do you? I said, do you really need to live with him? Do you need to live with us? I said, is there anyone else or any place else you can actually move to that would actually be a benefit to your life? Do you really want to be a personal designated driver for this guy at all times? Whenever he needs a ride somewhere, you're right there. You're the Uber, essentially. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to just go ahead and live for yourself? He said, you know what, Chris? I don't think I want to do this anymore. I said, all right. She said, I promise I won't mention you at all. I think I'm gonna go ahead and let him know that I don't want to live with him. I think I'm gonna find a different place to go. I said, all right. She went ahead and hopped back in her car, drove off, I guess going right back to the apartment. And me, I stayed at the park for at least 3 or 4 hours, just sitting to myself and talking to a couple of friends on the phone. When I decided to finally come back, I didn't see her car. Got inside the apartment. Instantly, the place looks like shit because guess what? This guy had a freaking meltdown and I guess had decided to throw food and chips and He broken dishes on the ground and in the kitchen. I mean, it was like a freaking horror show. And I remember him saying, "Damn it!" I said, "What's going on?" She fucking left. She telling me she doesn't want me to take advantage of her anymore and all this BS. So, you know what? I'm so done with this. Like, oh, can you believe that, Chris? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. What do you mean amazing? I'm like, I said, you know what? It's horrific. You know what? That is so damn a shame. Oh, sorry. Darn it. He said, yeah, I know, right? Darn it. I'm like, yeah. I said, well, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and go to bed, okay? Went ahead and went in my bedroom and went to bed. And honestly, I never heard from that woman ever again. I certainly didn't see her coming around the apartment no more after that. So what I'm trying to say is, guys, that narcissists want that reaction from you. When you start to have a question, when you start to have an opinion, they want to be able to have control over you. This is why they're going to go ahead and threaten to leave you. They're going to threaten and tell you that the relationship is not a priority to them anymore. They're going to tell you that maybe they need to go ahead and start doing some things on their own and stuff because they want to get better in their careers and everything. But, you know, the reason why they want to say that is because they want you to feel like you're holding them back, even though they're the ones who came to you and they wanted a relationship with you. But now, because you've decided to become a person who says no, or be a person that decides to stand up for yourself, they're going to make you feel like an anchor when you're not the anchor. You're not an anchor. You're just simply a person that has a kind heart that puts up with too much with them. That's what it really comes down to, guys. So, if you notice that things are being so unfairly done towards you, do not be afraid to stand up for yourself. Don't give them the look of desperation. Don't give them the voice of desperation, crying for them to come back, crying for them to be a part of your life, because most of them ain't shit. And they know this, whether it be a man or a woman. They know they're pretty much a problem for you. They know they don't treat you right, but it's the shame. It's the shame that controls their actions, but also in combination with the ego that really doesn't allow them to say, you know what, I really don't deserve this type of person. I'm a piece of crap. It's always going to stop them. The ego will always stop them. The ego will always stop the relationship. It will always come right before the relationship. Between your connection, their ego, it will always be way more important than the connection that the two of you actually share with each other. All right? I'm telling you the truth on this. So, if you notice that you're being laughed at, if you notice that you're always being threatened whenever you have a question, I'm telling you that connection ain't worth nothing. It needs to be cut off. You need to turn the TV off on it. Turn the narcissist television off and go somewhere else. Whether it be with somebody else or just simply yourself. I'm telling you, if you can find peace within yourself, that is truly amazing. That is a good weapon to have, as having peace to yourself and seeing things for what they truly are. But that's all I have to say for this video. I hope it wasn't too long-winded. I hope it can give you some food for thought. But I hope everyone has a good night, okay? Alrighty. Bye-bye.